Kia ora koutou and welcome to Markets, Mystics and Mayhem, a weekly podcast with Kiwibank's economics team alongside the occasional special guest. We'll delve into the data, decipher policy decisions, monitor the markets and analyse the issues impacting the Kiwi economy. Let's get into it.
Kia ora, welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is really exciting. We have a very special guest, but before I even introduce him and before we get started, I wanted to start with a little bit of a story. It was about my first economics lecture in university where I almost had a fresher's worst nightmare. Do you know what a fresher is?
No.
Fresh out of high school.
Oh, right.
And do you know what a fresher's worst nightmare is?
Falling over?
Showing up to the wrong class on your first day. So I thought that was happening to me because I was meant to be going to Eco 101 and I walked into the room, I sat down and the lecturer starts, plugging in his laptop and immediately comes up a picture of a tiger. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm in a biology class, I'm in a zoology class, I have to get out of here, I need to go to my economics lecture. But I'm right, this was back when students turned up to class, it was pre-COVID. So I was like stuck in the aisle and I thought, okay, I don't know how I'm gonna get out of here. But thankfully, before I could leave, the lecturer started talking and he welcomed us to Eco 101 and I thought, okay, I am in the right place. And it's a good thing he said that because I'm pretty sure the next slide had a crocodile on it. So that was when I was first introduced to environmental and wildlife economics. And it actually ended up being the course that made me switch my major to economics. So, that was a great course. And small world, when I started working here and when I first met Jared, I found out that same lecturer was also his lecturer and supervisor for his master's. So if you haven't guessed by now, our special guest today is that same lecturer, Brendan Moyle from Massey University, senior lecturer and economist. But, not just your average economist like me and Jared, because you could talk to Brendan about elephants, crocodiles, butterflies, you name it, and also the environment. So we're going to have some interesting conversations today, I think quite different to what we might normally cover. That's my big spiel, but Brendan, welcome. Let's talk about climate change because you can't avoid it. It's a huge issue right now. Yeah. First and foremost, how are things progressing in the climate change space most generally? And are we any better or worse than pre-COVID? Has COVID shifted anything? Are we improving? Are we harming less? Or is it just a bit of a sad story?
I think from an economics viewpoint, economists and climate scientists came to an agreement early on in the 2000s. So we can look at the Stern report, and that's basically saying the most economic course of action is to try to stop or mitigate climate change as much as possible now because the cost in the future of climate change are going to be so immense. We just have to start doing that. We can't keep putting things off. So in that sense, economists and climate scientists aren't really at loggerheads. The scientists are going, we don't do something fast, things are going to be really horrible by the end of the century. And economists are saying, yeah, we need to start spending money now because even though it costs us today, the costs in the future are so immense that it's going to be a problem, a big problem. Effectively, after the Paris Agreement, there was some optimism, still fairly optimistic up till about 2016. Most countries have got pledges going. There's what we call an emissions gap. What we're pledged to do and what we need to do is different to keep temperatures under 2 degrees. COVID-19 basically gave us a blip when emissions went down and then they just carried on. But the most pessimistic cause of fear for climate change now is the United States.
I was just going to ask that because since Trump came in, we spent a lot of time talking about the trade policies that he's enacted, but one of his initiatives was to step out of the Paris 2015 agreement, right?
Yeah, and not just that. So one of the problems is the United States is the second largest emitter on the planet. So what it does matters because its scale of emissions is so large. I mean, New Zealand should reduce its emissions like every other country should be reducing its emissions. And there are very good reasons to do it. And we will have to find the right mix of policies to get there. But if we stop doing climate change mitigation tomorrow, it's not going to impact the world. That's different to the current state where the United States and China effectively have the planet's future in their hands. If they cooperate, we've got a good chance of keeping temperatures below 2 degrees. And ironically, we love the Biden administration. The John Kerry, who was the US climate envoy, had a fantastic relationship with his Chinese counterpart. In Glasgow, they hammered out an agreement on methane. They got on, and they were getting there. Biden's Inflation Reduction Act had so many green energy projects that we were looking to get US emissions down to, well, they weren't going to get to what they needed to be for the Paris Agreement, but they're on the right track, and if more had come in, they would have got there. So what's Trump done? Well, obviously we're out of Paris Agreement. That's an easy story. But it's everything else that's going on that's a problem. So first of all, by adding or cancelling just the green projects associated with the Inflation Reduction Act, that's going to add, I think, something like about 4 trillion more tonnes of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere by 2050, which means we're going to blow past 2 degrees and we're looking at 3.5 degrees. So that's just that policy. What else are we doing? Well, we've got climate change deniers in front of the EPA. The EPA at the moment is actually looking at making a ruling, or investigating, making a ruling that carbon dioxide is not a pollutant. If that happens, all of the EPA regulations around carbon dioxide emissions are gone because they will no longer apply. And another really important instrument we have in countries around the world is what we call a social cost of carbon. So if you go to the New Zealand Treasury website and start digging around, social cost of carbon in New Zealand is reckoned to be about, at the moment, $150 per tonne. If we look at the United States, it was roughly $50 during the Obama administration, US dollars. Trump 1.0 dropped that to $1, which meant all of the things that passed benefit cost analysis on climate change policies didn't anymore. So things like fuel efficiency standards on motor vehicles. Biden comes in. Biden was suddenly happy. Biden restores the $50 one and does an investigation and analyzes it and says we need to incorporate more of these social costs. Comes out proposing they should be using $191 US as their social cost. Trump comes in. Gone. So there's no social cost of carbon. In economic speak,
there's no incentives.
The externality is now effectively zero from their viewpoint. Then we have the promotion of fossil fuels. We have the winding back of emission standards from coal-fired power plants. So now they are free to put more heavy metals into the population rather than do expensive steps to reduce the pollution. If we look at forestry policy, he's looking at opening up 280 million acres of public land to be felled. Well, trees are fantastic. Trees are both a store of carbon and they sequester carbon. They suck it out of the atmosphere with photosynthesis and store it. So we're promoting fossil fuels. We're getting rid of all of the regulations and brakes on using fossil fuels. We've banned the use of wind power offshore. We're aggressively going against policies within the United States to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The adaptation policies they had through FEMA are gutted. So good luck if there's another serious wildfire in California, which there will be. So I said just winding back the Inflation Reduction Act blows us past 2 degrees. Add all of this other stuff on.
Takes it even further.
Yeah. So we're looking at a sad, grim future
Yeah.
by 2100.
And what about the other side? What about China? Are they?
They're pretty good. One is they have quite a growing effective emissions trading scheme in the power sector.
Right.
They've led the way with solar power.
Yeah.
A lot of the reason solar panels now cost a lot less than they did before is because just the money poured into research and development on making solar panels better. It's good.
And mass producing, surely.
Mass producing, those economies of scale are fantastic.
Yeah.
So they've kind of, looks like they've peaked with their greenhouse gas emissions and they're starting to come down.
Which is just their economy, though, right? I mean, their aging population and their economy's slowing too. What worries me is India and others who, India, in my opinion, may be the China of the next 30 years.
Yeah, and India is running its economic growth mostly at the moment on cheap coal that they can mine.
Correct.
Indonesia is doing something similar. So the beauty of coal for development is it's abundant. It's cheap to mine. You just throw it into your power plants. You've got cheap electricity.
Great. Australian export that.
Yeah. Problem is, coal is bad.
Yes.
It kills people. We have papers that look at communities that live in proximity to a coal-fired power plant. Life expectancy goes down. Respiratory diseases go up.
Yeah.
The quality of life is lower. Particulates are higher in the atmosphere. That gives you your respiratory diseases. You're pouring out heavy metals and other toxins from your plants. Plus, you're also doing your greenhouse gas emissions because coal is has the highest greenhouse content of any fossil fuel. Hypothetically, and this is what we were kind of really trying to push in the 90s and early 2000s, getting away from coal-fired plants to natural gas would halve emissions. You can basically halve a plant's emissions by using natural gas rather than coal.
Yeah. But people are against natural gas.
Yeah.
Because they don't compare it to coal.
Yeah. It's been big in the United States. Because fracking has released so much natural gas. Natural gas has overtaken coal in the electricity industry for the very simple reason power plants are profit maximizing. And if your fuel is cheaper as gas than coal, you buy the natural gas.
Yeah. Another great Australian export, just quietly. I think they're the world's largest exporter now.
Well, I thought Norway would be pretty big.
Natural gas. After the Gorgon project, I'm pretty sure they overtook Qatar, but I might have to double check.
Yeah. I know that after Russia invaded Ukraine, Norway's got bigger into natural gas exports. Wind farms are great. Solar panels are great.
So talk us through that, because there are the skeptics out there. And, you say a wind farm and someone will turn around and say, yeah, but there's so much minerals and whatever that goes into building these massive propellers.
That's trivial compared to the cost of, the concrete and steel that you need.
Yes.
One of the most greenhouse gas emitting construction materials is concrete.
Yes.
Right? This is why, we try to, in terms of construction, there's been attempts at various levels of enthusiasm to use wood rather than concrete for constructions. The Nelson Airport is kind of used as the icon in New Zealand. They use laminated timber construction to make this gorgeous building, and it sequesters about 300 tons of carbon dioxide.
Wow.
Whereas if they'd done concrete and steel, they would have
it's the opposite.
Gone the opposite direction. Then you've got your heavy metals, which you have to take into account from fossil fuels.
Yeah.
So that we don't notice population life expectancy declining around wind farms. We notice it around the other things.
No, that's very true. When you say heavy metals, you mean that going into the water, or what do you mean?
Things like mercury, lead.
Going into water systems,
and also into the atmosphere.
Oh, into the atmosphere as well. Yeah.
And because they're heavy metals, the body doesn't get rid of them. They just keep building up in body. And,
Right.
and we basically know that lead poisoning and mercury poisoning is a bad idea.
Yeah, no good.
Yeah.
Was it the Romans who had a bit of lead poisoning? Who had
The Romans did a lead poisoning quite well.
Yeah.
And for a long time, the story of the Mad Hatter is because the felts were treated with mercury. So hatters sometimes went mad because of overexposure to mercury.
Oh,
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and in effect, don't get exposed to heavy metals.
No.
I guess the challenge to, well, within the New Zealand context, the challenge to renewable energy is, one, we have an isolated grid. Why is that important? Well, Denmark can have lots and lots of wind farms. They can overbuild wind farms, and then they can sell their surplus electricity to Germany.
Yeah.
If we generate surplus electricity, it vanishes.
Just
right. And that's a bad investment decision if you're a electricity generator. I build a wind farm and there's nobody who wants to buy it. Or the jargon we have is that price elasticity of demand for electricity is inelastic.
Pretty flat. Yeah, straight up. Yeah.
So if we expand the supply, prices drop a lot, and so does the revenue. Do you build a wind farm when it's going to reduce your revenue? Energy generating companies are basically spacing out the production or the introduction of renewable energy, because if they do too much too fast, it's going to cost them money.
Yeah. That's not well understood.
No.
I don't think.
Yeah.
Like, we look at the gentailers here and we go, oh, yeah, there's problems, but no one understands that if they invest too much, it could be a bad thing.
Yeah. Now, there are ways around that. So Germany solved that problem by having a feed-in tariff. So whatever the price dropped to, the tariff was added to the power bill to bring the price back up to a level.
Like a minimum level for the...
And to justify the investment in renewable energy.
All right.
But I don't think you could go to the New Zealand public and say, we can more renewable energy, but you're going to have to pay more for power. Well, I mean, maybe we could have...
Not more for power, but maybe you don't get the full benefit.
Yeah. So, and because we're a closed grid, if you're looking at electricity, you basically need your base load, which is what's demanded all the time. So hydropower is really good at providing New Zealand's base load. All the time.
Yeah.
Then you need to follow the demand, because odd thing about electricity is that we don't kind of go supply equals demand neatly. What happens is demand changes over the day or the year, and the generators try and match the supply to the demand. The supply follows the demand up and down the day.
Yeah.
So that's where your wind power and your geothermal and your solar and all these other things can kick in. But then you hit your peak periods. That's where thermal power comes in.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the advantage of thermal power is you can fire it up fast. You can shovel more coal in and get more electricity out. Right.
Yeah.
We can't make the sun burn brighter to generate more solar power. We can't ask the wind to blow harder to generate more power. But you can put more coal or natural gas into these fossil fuel.
Yeah.
So when we look at an electricity system, it has to be understood in terms of a network that you need to plug all of these things.
Yeah.
So even a country like Uruguay, which got up to 98% renewable, it has the advantage it can sell electricity to Argentina and Brazil, still has about 2% as thermals.
Right.
Because that's your peak demand. If you need to fire up the power to avoid a power cut.
And that's unexpected peaks, are you saying? Or just in general
expected peaks.
Expected peaks, well, okay, yeah.
I mean, we've had that before. I'm sure many of us will remember Transpower pleading for people to cut back their power use because we've got a sudden unexpected power snap.
Yeah.
The supply's not going to be enough. So,
what's the solution then? Because I mean, coal and these dirty things are like perfect kind of batteries, aren't they? They're just sitting there. What is it? Is it a battery or is it a different type of of generation?
For New Zealand context, there's going to have to be overbuilding renewables to some extent.
Right.
We have to figure out how to pay for that.
Right.
And the other is batteries, I think. If we look at the South Australia Hornsby project, basically they got that going in about 8 months.
Right. Sorry, what's that project?
Hornsby.
Yeah.
So it's a giant battery system in South Australia.
Yeah.
So built it, and they had a coal-fired plant go out of operation. Power cuts were about to emerge. The battery system was in operation within milliseconds.
Yeah.
To meet that demand.
Yeah.
And normally with reserves, we would go spinning reserves. We can get it operating within 10 minutes. Normal reserves within 30 minutes. We could do this in milliseconds.
Yeah.
We could do it then build it within months.
8 months.
Yeah.
It's not much.
Cost a fraction of the price that the Onslow Lake project we were looking at possibly doing
Right.
would have cost and would have taken 10 years to build.
Yeah. Because the lake's a kind of storage in itself, is it?
Yeah. You can treat the lake as a battery. So, some countries basically, you buy electricity when it's cheap, pump the water up. Same thing works with batteries. You buy the electricity when it's cheap, put it into the battery.
Yeah.
And when you need to meet the demand, price is going to be high.
Yeah.
You get a very fast payback because within 3 years,
The Hornsby project.
it paid itself. Yeah.
So what's stopping us from doing something like that here? Is there pushback or what's the...
There are some battery projects going in, but they're small scale.
Yeah.
I think one of the problems was because the previous government was looking heavily into Lake Onslow.
Right.
You were reluctant to make an alternative investment in batteries if Lake Onslow would have wiped out your investment.
One sounds cleaner than the other.
Yeah.
Is it just the optics or...
No, I mean, hydroelectric needs lots of concrete to build dams. You need lots of steel to transport the water. You've got a relatively high grid cost because you've now got to expand the grid to transport the electricity from where it's generated to where the demand is.
Yeah.
One of the beauties of batteries is you can put batteries where the demand is.
Yes.
Grid costs are relatively low. Connection costs are low. This is one of the challenges with wind farms is we like to put them in lovely hill slopes and rural
can't really
areas.
put them in the CBD, can you?
Yeah, but these lovely hill slopes have got this lovely wind. It's optimal for their cost of generating electricity is low until you add in, okay, now we have to connect it to the grid.
Yes.
And the grid becomes the big cost.
Yeah. Yeah. And geographically, we're quite a large country, actually, and quite spread out. So,
yeah. Also lucky in terms of renewable resources.
Oh, absolutely. Hydro.
We've got hydro. We've got geothermal. There are a lot of countries that can get those two. We've got really good wind resources.
Yeah.
We get decent solar
as
well.
Except for Wellington. I'm sorry, it will not work there.
This is just giving me flashbacks to, was it my last year at university? I had you, and I think it was an environmental economics paper. Actually, no, it would have been second year.
Right.
And we were looking at the electricity markets in New Zealand. And one thing that we covered was how you mentioned, where are we tracking for our percentage of renewable energy? I think we're at 80.
It's depending on how much it rains.
Yeah.
We're about 85, 86%.
And I remember we were analysing the goal of getting to 100% renewable energy, but that marginal cost of getting further because of this, because of the sort of supply meeting demand there actually wasn't the most feasible way, and your marginal costs end up really expensive.
Yeah.
So actually I remember suggesting part of that, instead of getting to 100% renewable, whether you allocate some of that funding into other areas that benefit the economy. So I remember, pushing for infrastructure like public transport, trains, things like that. I know you're very passionate about that.
Sorting the demand side out,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess things like smart meters also helps with moderating the demand for electricity. But the whole problem is we have to overbuild renewable energy to be able to meet that demand, because we can't get it from Australia. And we can't sell excess electricity to Australia.
Yeah.
An isolated network. So the actual cost of going to 100% starts to become exponentially very high for a very small payoff. Whereas, maybe go to 98% or 95% and then start putting your money into public transport or cycle lanes or, all sorts of things. Probably in this day and age, we need to be much more aggressive too with adaptation strategies to climate change, because it's going to be costing us more and more in the future.
What do you mean by those?
We're going to see more events like Cyclone Gabrielle. Or even bad storms. The whole point about tropical cyclones now is we're seeing more Category 5 hurricanes / cyclones / typhoons, which is the top category. Why? Well, one reason. There's more water in the atmosphere. When water in the atmosphere means when it rains, there's more water coming down. So the flooding risk goes up.
And that more water in the atmosphere is put up there by what? Heat? Or
because the climate's getting warmer.
Yep.
So the warmer the climate, the more water vapor there is, the more water vapor is, the more flooding we're going to see. So, and that trend is going to keep going up, and possibly even more going up given the US current policies. The other reason is the heat in the ocean generates or puts more energy into the storms, so it creates more violent storms. So one risk we're going to face is we're just going to have more cyclones, more dangerous cyclones, more flooding events than ever before.
And those seas are rising.
And the sea level is rising. So there are things that we know can help, but a lot of these investments take time. Some investments don't take much time. One of the very effective tools we have now is flood maps published by cities. If you want to buy a property,
we've seen a few of those.
If you want to buy a property, you can go on the system, look up the house you're interested in, look at if it's in a flood zone, and decide whether you want to purchase that. Sucks if you're a house owner in a flood zone. But the whole point of adaptation is we don't actually want people living in exposed flood zones. We want people over time to move away from these areas. So that's quite cheap. But things like nature-based solutions, like having lots of mangroves. Mangroves are fantastic. We should have lots more mangroves. Mangroves, sequester lots and lots of carbon. You go and look at the mud, and that's captured by mangroves. That mud is a massive store of carbon.
Oh, right. I didn't think about it like that.
It rivals forests.
Right.
So one is, if we have mangroves, we're sequestering lots of carbon.
Should tell that to the folks in Mangawhai who spend thousands of dollars every few years to rip the mangroves out of the estuary.
Oh, no, that's terrible. Sad. The other is they protect against sea level rise and flood damage.
Oh, that's where I thought you were going. Yeah.
And it's much cheaper to have mangroves than to build seawalls. Now, it turns out you can get an optimal combination of sort of seawalls or rather living barriers. So you can have barriers offshore which will break up the waves before they hit. And then you can have your mangroves. They absorb a lot of that shock. So nature-based solution. These are going to take years to do, but they're quite effective. Expensive solutions, moving people away from flood zones.
I think it's going to be probably one of the biggest challenges in probably my lifetime in terms of the impact on the economy as well, right?
You're going to be looking at it if you work in a bank. Right. So here you are. You'll be looking at it for quite a while. I joined Kiwi Bank in 2018, and we were looking at sea level rise But you've just told us that water comes down as well. So, we're getting floods from cyclones, and we're not just worried about sea level rise, but the other. Yeah. And then don't get me started on an earthquake, and water can come in sideways. But anyway, that's quite a lot to deal with. And what I know that there's a lot of discussion internally for years now about those maps that you talk about. And you look at these homes that are at risk now or will be at risk in the future, and you say, well, as a bank, we've got mortgages across the country, and there's a small amount, but a not insignificant amount, are at high risk. And, the time will come where they won't get insurance.
Yeah.
And if you can't get insurance, I'm sorry, but you can't get a mortgage. Yeah. And then what does that do to the price of a property that's unable to get a mortgage? It goes to your point about having to move people, but geez, what a shock.
When that proportion of houses that, can't get a mortgage and so their price goes down, people sell and they move away from there. We already have a housing shortage. So how many houses?
You're adding to it, aren't you?
You're adding to the housing shortage.
So IAG have done some work and they suggest that currently there's at least 20,000 homes who are already in the state, and that number grows. Yeah. And you're the one looking at the climate change. That number's not going to.
No,
it's going higher.
It's going higher. Yeah.
And these are Kiwibank customers. Even if you're a customer of one of those Australian Teletubbies, you're going to be impacted.
Yeah, and it's not cheap. So I think after Cyclone Gabrielle and the Auckland floods, we're looking at a $1.5 billion spend on the houses that were damaged there, and that's being split between Auckland Council and central government.
Yep.
So people are complaining about their rates. Well, yeah, your rates are going to keep going up because this damage is just going to get worse and worse.
Yes.
Unless we build lots more mangroves. But nature-based solutions are effective. So those of us in Auckland may be aware that the attempt to turn part of Takapuna Golf Course into a natural wetland to
yes, read about that.
Yeah, brilliant idea. We need to be doing these sorts of solutions because nature is often the most cost-effective solution to building stock banks and seawalls and all these other things.
Yes.
If we can leverage nature as much as possible
to do it for us,
then our adaptation costs are lower.
Yeah.
Are there any policy initiatives or just a single initiative today that you would implement right now if you could?
How would you save the world, Brendan?
Yeah.
In terms of climate change or something else?
Let's go climate change since we're just finishing that up.
If I could, renewable energy, because most of our planet's emissions come from electricity generation. Well, not most, but the biggest whack comes from electricity generation. If we can get big cuts in the use of coal and natural gas, you're going to see big reductions quickly in what we emit. But nothing we do now can be done in isolation of adaptation. So we need to be adapting to climate change ahead of time. Nature-based solutions, making our infrastructure more robust against disasters, getting households and communities more disaster prepared. These are the costs we're facing.
Okay, well, Brendan, it was really great having you on. Like I said, like I promised, very different topics that we sometimes touch on, but completely different ones as well. But either way, it's really, really insightful. Hopefully we're not walking away feeling too grim and we can take up some of these adaptation strategies. I mean, I think we need more investment in climate change going forward. I think something we always say is, debt isn't bad if it's good debt. So, I think there is room for the government to be doing a bit more in this space. I know that I'm going into the budget now. There wasn't a lot of spending on climate change. We did talk about that in one episode, but again, debt isn't bad if it's good debt. So, hopefully we can see more spending in this space. soon because we need it. That's all for this week's episode. Multiple potentially if we split it to 2. As always, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
I was going to say, I'm not done. No, I'm not, no.
Or we'll just have to get Brendan back on.
Sorry, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because there were other things we didn't talk about. I was going to talk about the ETS. I was going to talk about cows and methane and agriculture.
God, I'll be the most unpopular environmental economist in the country after all of that.
So maybe we'll see you back on the show.
Yeah, I think we need, there was a few things I wanted to get into, but we just, I don't know, that went for an hour. You've been tuned into This is Kiwi Economics, Markets, Mystics and Mayhem. We'll be back next week for more analysis and insights.
Any views or information shared in this podcast, while given in good faith, aren't necessarily the views of Kiwi Bank.